Say hi, Maxie.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us this evening, especially because it is Friday. And thank you so much, Annette, for taking the time, on this Friday evening to join us to discuss your book, Big Chicas, Don't Cry. Annette, I will say briefly, obviously, you write stories about love, family, and following your dreams. You also write romance novels under the pen name Sabrina Sol, which I thought was a really cool fun fact. And aside from everything you do, working jobs, writing, you also have 3 children, a husband, and 4 dogs, I believe, to take care of. Yay.
Yeah.
It is just like a brief recap, but I want you to quickly introduce yourself. And also, just really quickly, for those that don't know me, my name is Nancy Correa. I started with my cousins a book club called Lit Primas. These are 2 of my cousins, Daisy and Araceli. And this is Araceli's little baby, Maximiliano. And this is basically like Gracie and Selena right here.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you so much, Annette, for joining us. Do you mind just giving us a quick introduction?
Sure. Thank you again for the invitation, and thank you everybody for who has joined. And for a Friday night, I'm happy or honored that you've chosen to spend some time with me today. Yeah. So I've been an author, a published author since 2012. I actually did start out as a romance author under the pen name Sabrina Soul. And I've actually been writing ever since I was in school, different types of writing, but I always wanted to be an author. And so it was a dream to finally get my first book published. And then this book, Big Chicas Don't Cry, was actually the first book that I ever tried to write once I decided that I wanted to pursue my dream to become a published author. But it was a long journey to get it first written and finished, and then another long journey to get it published. So it's just been such a wonderful whirlwind since the book has been out, and I've just been getting so many messages of people who have enjoyed the book, and it's been great. So yes, I live in Southern California. I work full time in healthcare marketing, and so I do this author thing whenever I have free time. And I have 3 children, 4 dogs, and I come from a very large, extended Mexican American family, which was definitely the inspiration for the family in Big Chicas.
Yes. So you and if you do have questions during the conversation, please feel free to drop them in the chat, or feel free to like raise your hand or unmute and just chime in to ask questions. But we'll definitely time at the end to also open it up for questions if you want to wait till the end. But you did mention about this being your first book, and I also did read that in 2012. And it took you a series of a lot of no's. I believe I read 13 no total. Yep. And it wasn't until a writing contest that you entered through Twitter that you saw in 2017. And in 2020, you were able to get like a publisher. And finally, the book came out September of 2022. So can you just walk us through a little bit of just going back to 2012 and what motivated you, like what incited you, when did you know that you wanted to start writing, and what did that night look like, or that day that you actually wrote down those first couple of words?
Well, I think it was pretty much like a midlife crisis. I was about to turn 40, and I, as you do when you have a midlife crisis, you kind of evaluate, where you're at, and is this really where you imagined yourself to be? And I had always wanted to be an author. And so once I decided that I wanted to be an author, I really, I had no knowledge of how to do that. But fortunately, I had kept in touch with a friend from college, and we were actually on the student newspaper together. And I had kept in contact with her through Facebook. And so she was posting, when she got her agent and when she had a new book coming out. And so I just messaged her And I said, what do I need to do to make this happen? I didn't have a book, ready. I did have a little seed of what Big Chicas was going to be. I basically just had like one scene in my head, and it was that story, that it just wouldn't go away. And so I would work on it for a little bit, and then I put it away, and then I'd bring it out. I think of something else, and I'd work on it for a little bit. And as this was going on, my friend was a romance author, and so all of her advice or suggestions kind of pulled me into the romance publishing side of things. And once I got, because one of her first big suggestion was, you need to find a writing community, some sort of writing group, writing association. And so of course she encouraged me to join the one that she was part of, and they had local meetings. And once I started going to those meetings, I was even more encouraged to continue writing. And I was lucky enough to get my first contract for a short story through a publisher that she had also published short stories with. And so from there, it was, oh, okay, yes, I want to be a romance author. And I had always been a romance reader. My mom was a big romance reader. She had books all over the house. And so those were kind of like the first books that I read, even though I wasn't supposed to be reading those books. So I'm sure, so it was kind of like a full circle. This is what I started out reading, and then now all of a sudden I was writing it. But this story for Big Chicas just wouldn't go away. And as I wrote more romance, then that was helping me finish Big Chicas, because I was learning craft and I was learning story structure. And I think, the story changed and evolved over the years. But the core message, the core relationships between the four cousins and their great grandmother was always there. That was always going to be the story. Like how they got to the end of the book changed, every time I would edit it or something, I changed something about the story. And so, so it took me a while to finish it, and it actually was another contest that kind of gave me the push to do it, because you needed a full manuscript to enter this contest. And if you were a finalist in this contest and you got matched with an editor and another published author who would read your manuscript and help you, finesse it and get it ready to submit to agents. And so that was kind of like the push I needed to finally finish the book first. And then, so I entered that contest, and I didn't final, but the judges who had read the, whatever how many chapters I had sent in, they gave me really good feedback and a really good critique. And because of that, I knew, okay, if I worked on this book, it might be published, somebody might publish it. So it kind of encouraged me to continue. But yeah, it took a long time, and the rejections that I got were really pretty much, it was the same feedback, is that I can't relate to your characters. And so that was kind of disheartening, because I didn't want to change my characters, right? This was the story that I wanted to tell. And if I changed too much, then, it wasn't going to be that story anymore. So I kind of stopped submitting for a while. And, I had to seriously consider, do I put the book away forever? And do I start working on something else? Or do I just focus on my romance books and not worry about these other books other stories that I wanted to tell? And then the Twitter contest happened, and I wasn't even gonna enter, because it starts like really early in the morning and only goes for like 12 hours. And it wasn't until the afternoon, because I kept seeing it come up in my Twitter, I started to get more encouraged. Well, maybe I'll just try one more time. And I even texted some friends and like, asking, is this even worth it? And of course they were like, yes, do it. And so I did. I was at work and I just kind of came up with, a tweet really quick. And from that tweet is how I got my agent.
Well, I absolutely love that you walked us through the trajectory, and also that I think three things: the perseverance you showed, and I think culturally that's something that we come with about work hard, keep going, keep looking for opportunities, and that even though you were told you can't relate to the characters, you didn't change that because you know your audience. Like these people know who you're trying to write for. You know that. And just mentioning that, I guess now I'm going to go into some takeaways from that, because you just mentioned can't relate to the characters. And as I was reading the book, I related to every single character in one way or the other. And I was always very careful about, not careful, but I was just very observant of my reactions to certain scenes. So for instance, I feel like this book covers the cultural identity crisis that we face. And there's a scene with Selena and the comment she makes on chapter 7, page 49, that she's tired of defending her Mexican heritage. And she talks about how even as her being a first grader, she knows that an accent is going to isolate her, and how maybe taking un burrito de huevo to school is just like a big no-no. And these are things that I'm like, yes, looking back, there were certain things that we do culturally that at school we get like pinpointed out, but I was able to relate to that. And now I feel like I'm at a stage in my life where I'm like, well, we should embrace that more, but it is hard when you're growing up and you're seeing that. The other thing that I felt that it covered is belittling our impact. So we always minimize the work that we do. And I saw this with Mari. She's serving on these boards, but she feels like she's not doing enough. There was a quote on like chapter 12, page 76, where she's like, I'm serving on these boards, but I'm not doing the work. And the fact that she's at a board level, and that we live in a time and where there's not enough like Latinas serving on board. We're usually the ones doing the work and having. So the fact that she's minimizing the impact that she's having by being in the board as a Latina, I was just like, oh my God, Mari, no, you're like just being in that position, in that room, and that voice. The other thing is that not using our voice, especially when we have like an authoritative male like figure around. And I saw that at first with Erika, which I was a little bit surprised because Erika's the bold one. But when boss comes in, her new boss, she's like afraid to defend her point of view towards a story. And I saw this on chapter 10, like page 63, where he's giving her feedback and she has a vision, but she just rather just not even give her vision, not even voice what she thinks. And she decides to just do the changes and just whatever, resubmit it. And I think culturally that's something that we go through a lot. So I related with her as well. And Gracie, I don't want to go too far into the word, because Gracie, I was just, whoa, loyal anything. But I feel like Gracie at first is that character of that perfect, like Mexican daughter. She embodies what all of our parents would want us to be, like this religious person. You're a teacher, you have a great career. She's like submissive in a way. She's not like as bold as Erika and Selena and like Mari with their actions, and then she surprises us. But I think that I think just her characters as well as that challenge. I kept thinking, like, I feel like sometimes my whole life I felt like a Gracie in terms of like having to be submissive, obedient, yes mom, yes dad, and I'm not gonna do anything that's gonna hurt you guys. But sometimes you just kind of have to be a little bit like breakthrough. And she also embodies the fact that certain conversations don't take place in our family members because they're taboo. So you don't know, you hide these things that should be natural, and you decide not to like open up to anybody in your family because these are things you don't talk about. So I feel like she embodies all of that. So to your point about people saying, oh, we can't relate to that book, I'm like, I know I was kind of mind blown when you said that, because I do feel. So I just want to open up the floor and see if anybody, even you ladies, if you guys want to share something that you guys maybe felt that resonated in the book, or even if you guys want to have any questions right now for Annette.
I just want to know how you relate to the characters.
I was gonna ask the same thing.
That's because reading that you were able to relate to each of these characters. So I'm like, in what ways can you relate to Selena, or in what ways can you relate to Erica, or in what ways can you see yourself in those characters?
I do like to say that a part of me is in each of them. So it's not that one cousin is based on a specific one of my real cousins.
Yeah.
They're all, I think, a part of me.
Okay.
And I think, so for example, for Erica, I definitely relate to her sense of family and the importance of keeping traditions. And
Yeah.
she's just so bothered by Madi seeming to not care as much, where it means everything to her to have everything the same. And also her feeling about being comfortable, in her job, being comfortable with her previous relationship, not kind of like, even though she's bold and she speaks her mind, at the same time she kind of just wants to keep things the way they are. And I think that comes from just the fear of maybe she's not good enough to deal with these different new experiences. For Selena, it's definitely been, growing up looking like I do, but not being fluent in Spanish has definitely brought up issues for me, where people in college would be very upset with me or look down at me because I could not carry on a fluent conversation with them, that I wasn't Mexican enough. And at the same time, here I was, going to an mostly Caucasian, all-girl Catholic school, and being only one of a handful of brown girls, and so learning to kind of tamper down your Mexicanness so you can fit in. So that's definitely something that I resonate with. For Gracie, I'm the oldest in my family, so I am the good daughter. I am the good daughter. And I was, when I was in high school and college even, it was all about just do what you're told, don't question, make your parents proud, right? And then not until as I started to get older, I started to kind of push back on some things. One, because I realized, I had to, otherwise, I wasn't, my relationship with my parents was never going to change. So I had to start speaking up and, pushing back and saying, no, you're wrong. This is what's happening. And then for Madi, when somebody asked me the question, which cousin was hard to write, it was definitely Madi, because for me, because I come from such a big family, I could never imagine myself not being around them and not speaking to them, not coming to like every, party or whatever. So for Madi, I think in a small way, it was also just kind of finding your voice, or finding my voice and speaking up, not necessarily in, to my husband or for romantic relationships, but just in general, just, not being afraid to, like you said, make your presence known. And so I think that comes from her as well.
Okay.
I love how you explained all of that.
Yeah,
I think we all relate to it.
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to say anything before? Because I have a ton of questions, but I don't want to take up no time.
I just hope it turns out into a movie or something.
That would be really cool.
I would go watch it. I'd be very excited.
Hopefully.
or a novela. Yeah. Like sometimes I would be in my like lunch break room and I would be reading, and like some of these spicy scenes I would just turn red, but people don't know, you know. So I was like, this could totally be a novela. Like,
I know that would be a good one. That would be a good one.
Yeah.
No, it was really juicy. A lot
Yeah.
of the scenes. Some of the scenes were like, whoa.
I know.
But yeah, I guess going, if anybody wants to has any question, Linda, did you want to ask something?
Yeah. First of all, this is such a good book, and it's wonderful, like you said, like to see these cousins that I can resonate with each one of them and see a little bit of myself in each of them, and they're just really great people. My question is, you do character switching in the book, and so I'm just curious why you decided to tell the story from the perspective of each individual cousin versus, like from a third person point of view or from one cousin's perspective alone.
Interestingly enough, when I started writing this book, it always came out as first person, so it was the character speaking. It was never like a narrator. So I think for me it was just because I really wanted their personalities to come through, and because it's a family story and because it's a cousin story, I think I wanted my readers to feel like they were part of that family. And when you have a narrator, it kind of like removes or it puts up a wall between the readers and the character. And I think also when I was writing each cousin, I tried to make sure that their voice, their voices were different. So, for example, that's why Erica is, the one who has the Spanish curse words and says the F word a lot, whereas Gracie, every time you're in her head, she's praying, and she doesn't curse. And then when you're in Selena's head, you're not speaking Spanish. So I think by just throwing in like those little things, I wanted readers to kind of get a sense of who each cousin was. And I think if I had a third person telling you this is the type of cousin she was, I don't think it would have made as much of an impact as having the character speak for herself.
Thank you so much for that, Annette. And thank you, Linda. That was a great question because I actually did a little bit of homework. And you see all these little tags here. Counted the how many chapters each person had. So I wrote like Erika had 18, Mari 16, Selena 16, and Gracie 17, and they kind of interchangeably came. And I love the way that you wrote in their perspective. So it was
Thank you.
That some of that insights, and I was just curious to know more about like the structure of the book. Were you thinking about how many chapters each character will have? Is that something that you had in mind as you were writing the book, or just kind of went with the flow and however when you were writing?
I knew that I wanted them to alternate point of view, and I think I tried really hard when I was first writing. I had the order different, but then as the story kind of evolved and was coming out, I knew certain scenes had to happen in a certain order, and I needed to figure out of that scene that's going to happen, which cousin is it going to impact the most, and who should be telling this scene. And so as I was going, I did have to go back and kind of reorder whose point of view was coming next. And I think, and I can't remember now, but I think there is one chapter where it might be like skips somebody, and that's just because of what was happening at that point in the book. It would have messed up the impact. So I was worried about it, but then when I was working it out with my editor, she's like, it's okay. It's no big deal if, it's not exactly. So maybe that's what, and also the book opens with Erica. So she's going to have an extra scene automatically. And then it closes with Gracie. So she's going to have an extra scene. And I think for Erica, she definitely was a stronger personality. And her journey, I think, kind of, while all of them had an important journey to take, I think Erica's, because she opened the book, hers needed to be, I needed to make sure that I was showing more of her, I guess, if that makes sense, than maybe the others.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I'm just always fascinated at like all these little details that go into crafting a book.
Mm-hmm.
I just pay attention. Oh, the story was great, blah, blah, but there's more to it. There's a whole strategic approach of who opens up, the
Right.
person, even like the artwork. Do you mind just chatting a little bit about what inspired you for this artwork and the thought process around that and the title? Like, what did that look like?
So actually, Big Chicas Don't Cry was not the original title that I went out on submission with, and when I got my agent, it was going to be, well, what I had always called the book was Making Tamales. And so she had accepted, when I got my agent, she was okay with it. But once right before we were going to start submitting to publishers, she goes, I'm starting to think about the title, and I think we need to give the publisher a second option. One, because you don't want to, not everybody knows what tamales is, right? So already, if you have that word that people don't recognize, they're not going to pick up the book. And she goes,
that should be universal. Tamales.
right? I thought so. So after talking about it with her, she's like, why don't you come up, take the weekend, come up with a couple of other titles as options in case they don't like the first title. So I actually keep like a notes on my phone with book titles, because I'm always thinking about it. Even if I don't have a book to go with it, I'll hear something and I'm like, oh my God, that would make such a good, book title, and I'll write it down. And so I had Big Chicas Don't Cry on that list. And as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh my God, this fits the book so well. So I don't know what made me think of that title, but it was not for this book. So so as soon as she heard it, she's like, yes, that's gonna be it. And so that's what we went on submission with, was Big Chicas Don't Cry. As for the cover, I can't take any credit for that. That was the publisher. They're the ones who picked the artist. They actually gave me a form to fill out. And when I was, and they wanted to see like examples of other book covers that I liked. I always imagined that it was going to have 4 women on the cover, or 4 something, like 4 hands or something. And I didn't even think about I can't think of the word. Instead of illustrated, I didn't even think of an illustrated cover. I was thinking like of photos. And so when they came back with, I think there was like maybe like 5 options, but they told me right away that everybody wants that cover. So hint, hint, wink, wink.
That was really
yeah, so you can tell us what you like, but we all like this cover. So but luckily I did too. We made that's pretty much the cover that they presented me with. I think the only change was maybe like where my name was, maybe, but that's it. Everything else, that's how it came straight from the artist. So
well, thank you so much for sharing all those details, because these are things that we don't know. Does anybody else have like any other questions? Otherwise, I know we're at time. And I did want to just ask you, just to close off with some fun, like rapid fire questions that I came prepared with.
Sure.
So one of them is, they're totally random. So just give us your favorite dish.
Tacos.
Same.
What's on your nightstand?
A lamp and my alarm clock that doesn't work, but I still have it on my nightstand for some reason.
We all use our cell phones now.
Yeah.
What are you currently like binge watching or just watching in general? If
Oh,
anything.
I just finished. Well, the last thing I guess I binge watched was Wednesday.
Oh, I still need to watch it.
too.
Yeah.
I
We're
really
like,
liked it. I think I watched it like in 2 days with my 15-year-old, and we really both liked it.
oh my God. Yeah. No, I have to watch it. A quick snapshot of your typical morning.
I get up and usually, since I have 4 dogs, I have to deal with all the 4 dogs first, and then send my daughter off to school, and then I get ready and I go to work.
And last but not least, 3 things you're currently grateful for.
Oh, let's see. I'm number one. Definitely, nights like this where I get to talk to readers and people who love my book. 2, I'm always grateful for my family, and 3, I'm grateful for my health.
Oh.
I love all those. Thank you so much, Annette, for taking the time to join us
Thank you.
Friday night. And thank you, everybody, for joining us as well. We didn't get to talk, but I will mention that you have your latest book coming out, Too Soon for Adios.
Oh.
It's on pre-sale now, which I already purchased mine.
Mhm.
And it is going to go on sale on the 21st of March. Correct?
Yes, and it's not a sequel. It's a standalone story. But it has kind of the same themes of family and forgiveness, grief. And so, yeah, comes out March 21st, and I hope everybody loves it as much as they love Big Chicas.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you planning a sequel?
I would love to do a sequel, but it's not up to me. It's up to the publisher, if they want to give me the contract. So we're they wanted to see how the first book did.
Yeah.
And then they're probably going to want to see how my next book does, and then we'll be able to have that conversation if they would like a sequel. So I'm hopeful. I would love to write it. I kind of already know what I would write, so I hope I get the chance.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Annette.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
Bye. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.